What's going on, Nerd Squad, and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. With the superhero life being a dangerous one, odds are at one point you'll have to put the cape to the side and take a break. Maybe your back hurts, maybe you weren't as good as you thought. Whatever the case may be, replacements are always needed no matter which way things go down. I'm your host for today, Taylor McWatters, and here are the top 10 superheroes that got replaced. Let's count them down. Kicking off the list at number 10, Spider-Man replaced by MATTIE. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 5, we see on the front cover a photo of Spider-Man with the caption, "The other Spider-Man," below it. So just who may this be? Meet Martha Mattie Franklin. She was a teenager living in New York. Father was Jerry Franklin, a wealthy businessman, and her uncle was J. Jonah Jameson. Gotta love those holiday dinners, probably so much yelling. In Amazing Spider-Man issue 441, we see something called the Gathering of the Five. So after Martha overheard her father and Norman Osborn talking about this ceremony, she took her father's place instead. So this ceremony was a ritual with 5 arcane relics, where it goes one of two ways. Either you get powers from this ritual, or you pay the ultimate price, 1 in 5 odds to gain knowledge, power, immortality, or insanity or death. Sick. We love a good gamble. That's always fun. Osborn gets power and MATTIE gets superhuman abilities and flight. So when Spider-Man disappeared for a few months, MATTIE stepped in to take over. Her run only lasted 18 issues, no thanks to Kingpin, but after she's rescued by the other Spider-Woman and Jessica Jones, she retired. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be so helpful. It helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's go back to some more superheroes who were replaced. Number 9, Batman replaced by AZRAEL. After the Nightfall storyline, when Batman, got wrecked by Bane, he decided to pass on the Batman mantle to not Dick Grayson. No. Instead, he chose Jean-Paul Valley, aka AZRAEL. His run on Batman wasn't the same as Bruce's at all. I mean, for starters, AZRAEL's methods were violent and irresponsible. So already I feel like this is going downhill just looking at a resume. Some of these replacements are good, some of them are bad. That's how we do. That's pretty much the opposite of what we're going for here. He was, however, capable of defeating Bane with his new suit, so that's cool, it's fine, I guess. We'll give him that. Fine, fair, good job. But this guy thought that made him an all-round better Batman and a permanent successor. Wrongo. So once Bruce recovered, he had to force AZRAEL to leave the position. So then ashamed Jean-Paul Valley returned to his AZRAEL days. Imagine getting caught for a petty crime on one of the nights that AZRAEL was patrolling. You think you're getting caught by Batman, maybe a slap on the wrist, all of a sudden this dude's just like whipping you off buildings, and he looks like that? Dude, you're a villain. I'm sorry, my friend, you are a villain. Number 8, the android Torch replaced by Johnny Storm. Flame on, rock on, right on. So before Johnny Storm made his comic book debut in 1961's Fantastic Four issue 1, the previous title of the Human Torch was actually not even a human at all. The character goes back even further to when Marvel was actually referred to as Timely Comics. That's how old we're going. So he was originally an android who became known as Jim Hammond later on. So this android Torch came from the mind of Professor Phineas T. Horton. Well, Tim Hortons there. This android he created matched a human being. It moved like a human being, and it thought like a human being. And it also spontaneously combusted into flames like a human being. We all do that, right? No? Okay. In Avengers West Coast issue 50, the team revived this version of the Torch when they found it in a grave during the investigation of Vision's origin. What a find. Number 7, the Hulk replaced by Amadeus Cho. Amadeus Cho made his debut in Amazing Fantasy Volume 2, number 15. He is a Korean American raised in Arizona, and when Amadeus Cho participated in a quiz show named Brain Fight at just the age of 15, he won that quiz show and was awarded 5,000 smackaroos while being deemed the 7th smartest man in the world by Reed Richards himself. Not a bad day at all, not a bad day. Pythagoras sent out a squad of goons to take out Amadeus, and he barely escaped. He ran away, and then that's when he met the Hulk. So years later, Amadeus would eventually become the Hulk. Well, rather, the totally awesome Hulk, that is. He got stuck with dangerous amounts of radiation that should have made him go mad, but instead he got special nanites to absorb the Hulk's powers. He took pride in trying to be a better, smarter Hulk. At one point, he exiled himself into space on a satellite to study himself and his ability to control himself. To be safe, to be away from everybody else. I mean, to have the power of the Incredible Hulk minus the anger, to be in complete control, sounds like the Hulk we all deserve, most of the time. Number 6, Hank Pym replaced by Scott Lang. Since Ant-Man made his big screen debut back in 2015, it's hard to imagine anybody else in that role other than Paul Rudd. Even other cast members can't take their eyes off this gorgeous man. Introduced in the same movie, we also have Hank Pym, played by the fabulous Michael Douglas. But in the comics, Hank Pym was far from fabulous. especially in a 1963 Avengers issue that shocked readers. So the issue had Hank Pym assault Janet, aka the Wasp, aka his lover. Physical and mental abuse? Yeah, this guy's gotta go. See ya. Even in the movies as well, there's no way Disney would ever have had Hank Pym be the one that turns evil and turns into Yellow Jacket like he did in the comics. They instead made Darren cross the Yellow Jacket and avoided that whole horrible comic storyline altogether. See, readers were delighted when Scott Lang entered the Marvel Comics in Marvel Premiere issue 47. This is the Ant-Man that fans liked much more, especially the screenwriter for 2015's Ant-Man when he was still attached to the project. Edgar Wright chose Scott Lang's run because he grew up reading it and he liked his version more for obvious reasons. Number 5. Tim Drake replaced by Stephanie Brown. Tim Drake made his comic book debut in Batman issue 463. He became the third Robin at a young age after Jason Todd was replaced, which I'll get into a little later. But eventually he was forced to retire. But meanwhile, Stephanie broke it off with Tim Drake because she thought that he'd been sneaking around behind her back, cheating on her and stuff. So she needed something else to focus on, so she made a homemade suit and then snuck into the Batcave and demanded that Batman would make her the new Robin after he retired. So Batman's like, okay, you got it. That easy, let's do it, let's party. So cut to several months of training, a new costume upgrade that looked the exact same as Tim's suit. She's now rolling with Batman. And the two actually did pretty well together. I mean, for a little while, because you know, that's how these things go with Robin. She then disobeyed orders on a couple of missions and was promptly fired. No more suit, you're out of here, bye. Now this is where things go from bad to worse. See, because of this, Stephanie felt like she had to prove herself to Batman, because everybody's got to prove themselves to Batman and do crazy all the time. So she took one of his plans for the Gotham underworld and tried to step up herself, but this unfortunately led to the events of Batman War Games, where Stephanie was captured by Black Mask, tortured, and then she sadly passed away in a hospital with a regretful failed Bruce Wayne by her side. Sometimes a handy replacement can turn into tragedy. That's just how it goes, at least with this guy. Number 4. Spider-Man replaced by OTTO Octavius. While some replacements for the webhead are great, there are a handful of times when the new Spider-Man was a terrible leader. So now we go to the Amazing Spider-Man issue 700, where we find a dying Dr. OTTO Octavius. He's not looking too hot, so he uses his big brain, and this guy switches bodies with Spider-Man. So now Spider-Man would be slowly passing away in his body, and he would live on the inside of a superhero and try and do some good. He thought he could be a better, superior Spider-Man. Now the best part of this is that Peter was still inside of his own self, a little bit. He was able to remain inside the body and could communicate with the new webhead OTTO Octavius. Your conscious is literally Spider-Man. How neat / terrifying would that be? It's cool to see this version of Spider-Man, and after a few minutes with the new younger, healthier body, he dons himself the new name, the Superior Spider-Man. He ends up getting himself in trouble because of his violent superhero methods. This is like the ultimate Freaky Friday sequel gone wrong. This is just a mess. Number 3. Thor replaced by Jane Foster. I'm super excited that Taika Waititi is returning for Thor Love and Thunder. Thor Ragnarok was one of the best movies I've seen, especially with Marvel. It was so fun. So when they announced that Natalie Portman was returning to the sequel and she will wield the hammer, we're finally excited that we get to meet Jane Foster's Thor. In 2014, Jane took over the hammer in Thor God of Thunder issue 25. The tough part about her version of Thor is that the more that she uses the hammer and possesses the powers of Thor, the worse her cancer gets. Now I really hope this part doesn't make it into the movie, because I'll just be sad. I'll come out of there depressed. So during the comic Original Sin, Nick Fury obtains the Watcher's Eye, which is a real nice tool, and he whispers in Thor's ear, Gore was right. So now Gore thinks that gods cause more trouble than anything, and they're the worst. It makes Thor drop his hammer. So while Thor uses Yarnboard instead, Mjolnir needs a new helping hand, so enter Jane Foster. So now while the cancer setback is absolutely awful, Jane doesn't let it interfere with her duty. At one point, her and Freya go against Odin, Kolborsten, Frost Giants, Loki, Dark Elves. Like, she goes hard in the comics after she takes over, and I'm really pumped to see that side of Natalie Portman on the big screen. Number 2, Captain America replaced by John Walker. With Steve Rogers being an old man last time we saw him in the MCU, odds are he's either retired or he's since passed away. Either way, the team needs a replacement, and so does the government, apparently. So John Walker has now entered the chat. Wyatt Russell is playing this character named US Agent, and in the comics, John Walker first came in with Captain America issue 323. He actually started off opposed to Captain America. He would stage fights, make himself look like a better leader, and then he took on the alias Super Patriot, which is, you know, so American. And then in Captain America issue 333, we see him take on the role of Captain America. It's crazy. It's like they're casting a movie. There's headshots laid out. The government's looking at their options. And now they're like, oh, you know what? We're just gonna get this guy who launched the supervillain off of a building, and then he'll be our new Star-Spangled Super Patriot guy. Let's do it. So we're currently in the middle of Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+, so hopefully the shield goes back to who it really belongs to, Sam Wilson. And finally, number 1. Jason Todd replaced by Tim Drake. A Death in the Family written by Jim Starlin back in 1988, we got to see the death of the second Robin, Jason Todd, who I mentioned earlier. So for starters, this was a choice that readers had to make back in the day. So you could call a number and vote for the comics if they should kill off this version of Robin. That's crazy. You're like, beep, 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 beep. Kill him. So Batman had asked Barbara Gordon to come out of retirement to keep an eye on him during a couple of missions, but she saw this side of him, this dark, brutal, angry side, and she warned Batman, rightfully so. So Jason was tracking this lead to find his real birth mother, who was actually being blackmailed by the Joker the whole time, and the Joker got his hands on Jason Todd and he beat him to a pulp. It's brutal. And then after the Joker is done beating him, he leaves Jason, of course setting off a bomb afterwards, just for good measure, just to make sure. So Batman arrived a little too late after the bomb had gone off, and he held the Boy Wonder's body in his hands. So sad. So afterwards he comes back as Red Hood to find that he's been replaced after his death by Tim Drake. He calls himself Red Robin to avoid tainting the Robin name, but Red Robin, Blood Robin, I don't know, it sounds worse, but it's an animal. I get it. Red Robin sounds bad though. Batman considers this one of his greatest failures, not properly training Jason Todd as Robin, and we all agree. Well guys, there you have it. Some of those replacements came in during a good time, some were thrown in during the tragedy, but either way it's always entertaining to see somebody else suit up and do things their own way. Guys, I've been your host Taylor McWatters, you've been you, thanks for watching Top 10 Nerd, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.